Good morning. I want to talk about my current living situation for a change. So, where I currently live is not a tenanted property, it's a license agreement, which has nothing to do with pubs. It just means that I have minimal rights to remain here or to contest any request for me to leave the premises. So, for example, the landlord or the staff who represent the housing developer who run this building, they reserve the right, apparently, to request that I leave the premises, and it could be, a knock on the door today and then leave tomorrow. And I'm meant to live here indefinitely. So there's no time limit. There's no end date. There's nothing. Can't even count down the days. It's not even like being in prison. It's worse. And bid on properties through the Bristol City Council housing portal. So the properties on the housing portal, which is known as Home Choice, consist of properties owned and run by both Bristol City Council and the other housing providers are social housing. So I arrived here towards the end of last December. And though at the time it was what I needed, somewhere safe to stay in an emergency situation, hence the name emergency housing. It's also known as interim housing and temporary accommodation. But what I'm realizing in the patterns that I have observed from past experience is that the home never comes. It never comes. And I feel like by living in this environment and remaining in this environment, it's now counterintuitive to do so, because comparatively, when I first arrived, this was a haven. Whereas I've been here for so long now, so about 10 and a half, coming up to 11 months, that I feel as though it's going against what feels right to be here. And this isn't a split moment decision. This is something that I've been considering consciously and accountably for quite some time. I feel that what it represents for me to stay here is so unhealthy, so damaging, and it's masquerading as the solution when actually, by being here, it keeps alive many timelines that I have worked to close down. So the belief that I'm disabled and there is no hope for recovery for my physical or physiological health conditions, that I'm mentally unwell, mentally unstable, that I'm unsafe in some way. It's very fear-based. And the types of people, or just the people, it's not even types really. I suppose they could fall into categories because we're all in this building. But they're not my people. They're just not. I used to overthink that because I used to feel guilty for admitting those sorts of things. But for me, being considerate means something more than what my experience here has been and is quite often. So people opening and closing and banging doors and speaking loudly at 3 a.m. pretty much every night, or just generally that sort of attitude of the home space to be abused in that way, I find repulsive and repugnant, and it makes me unwell. Like, it makes me feel physically unwell. I believe in respect in the home space, and respect. I'm just done. Like, I'm so done here. Like, it's not, I don't even need to explain. Like, as an adult sort of sovereign human female being, I don't need to explain or justify why or how I know it's time for me to leave. I don't even need to know where I'm going. That's how sure, that's how, like, deeply, profoundly certain I am that the time has come to leave. That I don't feel any fear about what's to come or what's to follow at all. That's how connected I feel right now. And because I've allowed myself a substantial extended period of time to really sit with this feeling, I'm not doubting that it's a decision that I will regret or ultimately come to feel mournful about. Yeah, so I'm gonna buy some suitcases and I'm gonna leave.